Scene. Well, that was great information. Thank you, Martha, for relaying the info from Tom Monroe.
We've got crabs on either side of the slope here. It's pretty cool.
And a Lemonema on the right. We've seen a lot of these cancer-type crabs on today's dive. And we haven't seen any of the big lithodid crabs that we've seen a lot of recently.
That's right, yeah.
Huh, look at that burrow.
He does
like
not
it has
like
a driveway.
me being around.
Yeah, Pratt, that's about all your tether at the moment.
Well, there's not much land to cover here.
Yeah, you can't really.
I can't mow the lawn.
Yeah.
Go ahead, video. Right here. Yep.
So that is a paralipidid or barracuda type of fish. And they are very commonly in this particular orientation, vertical in the water column with the head up and the tail down. You can see the tail, or at least the part of the tail that moves is very end of the body, and I think that's I think it's thought that that is to
Trying to come around,
convey the least amount of motion so that they can't be detected by other organisms in the water column.
All right, let's let them go.
Well, that's a good thing. That was a nice view of it.
Good thing other organisms don't have flashlights because they kind of present themselves.
Yeah, they're very reflective.
Very reflective. And we've seen them poking their head into the sediment, and you thought that was a behavior in response to the lights.
I think so.
They swim downward when they're
a lot
agitated.
of different animals, including those fish, when you observe them in the water column with an ROV, one of their defensive responses is to swim downward. And so I think if they're right above the seafloor and they swim downward, they're going to end up running into the seafloor. I wonder how much those fish actually reflect bioluminescent point sources of light in the water column, though. I don't know, actually, about.
Okay, got a little more, pushing out.
Yeah, you have a little bit of tether.
Is that another one of those southern hake partly buried? Just going off screen?
I don't know, but there is a sea star again, one of these mud stars.
What are you looking for, Watchley?
Yep, I think you're right. There's a, he's he's quite large compared to the black belly rosefish.
So do you think that's another one of the southern hake?
Laser's clear.
It looks like
That's
the same species we saw earlier.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. He's just lying down.
Oh, I guess he's not fully buried.
Yeah, he's lying down.
Lying sideways with
Great.
just has a few layers of the fine sediment over him.
He's just lounging.
Yeah, I think that's the southern hake. I forget what that. I know that Cheryl had it written down, but I forget the name.
Roger that. Moving on.
Lasers coming back.
It's an interesting posture for a fish.
Hey, pilot, this is a standard length dive, right?
Correct.
Hey, can we take a quick zoom on the Sea Star?
Let's go in
Hoping
video.
to get a look at his pointed tube feet. But I don't think we're going to see that.
His toes are sticking out.
That's true. The very distal and the arm tips are sticking out of the sediment.
Yeah.
It does look like the same species, whatever that species is, that we've seen just a few other times today.
And you can see that he's in the process of burying himself. That left arm has just gone under. We saw one yesterday, or 2 days ago, I guess it was, and he was unearthing himself, and he lifts up one of the arms at a time, and the sediment spills
Oh, it's
off,
clear
and
when
he
video's
lifts
clear.
up another, and he raises himself using the pointed tube feet. Takes a long time, but we at least saw two of the limbs raised. So these darker sediments you see are what lies just beneath this surface sediment, and they are indicating a reducing environment, a lower oxygen environment, and that's very characteristic of these areas that have methane gases and reducing environments. The surface sediments, though, are continually exposed to oxygen-rich waters so that they are oxygenated, so they don't show that darker sediment. So any organism that burrows extracts the darker sediments, and also we think when these
Bridge
bubbles
nav.
Video,
are
let's snap
erupting,
here. This one
that
looks a little different.
the bubbles
Bridge,
may
you have
be
a new
forming
nav
little
now, so I just wanted
chimneys,
to
and we can
confirm
see
that our
down
bailout
into them.
direction is east.
Stand by there, video. I'm gonna hold it.
That sea
There we
star
go.
looks like he had 4 of his limbs damaged
Great,
at
thank
some
you very
point.
much.
Unless they're buried, I think those are the ends of them.
You know, I think you're right. I think you're right, Leslie. That I was trying to see if they were buried, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like, it's had
they
previous damage to
regenerate.
4 of the 5 arms, and they're in the process of regenerating.
Stand by video. I'm just trying to plant. Okay.
I wonder if genetic
All
studies
right, all
will
yours,
ever
Lydia.
reveal the mechanism that allows for regrowth of limbs. I'm sure it's been done for sea star, but I wonder if it's applicable to humans. Hard to imagine.
Come on, video. I lost my toe while I was trying to hand off. Yeah, roger that, watch lead. We're trying to do a handoff here as well.
And we're in the middle of a watch change with the pilot, so we'll pause here for a minute. It's a great little spot, though.
Give him a push.
Great habitat for
Handoff.
somebody, or several somebodies. Whether or not that's originally formed by bubbling or burrowing or partial collapse or a combination of all these things.
Nav, what was the direction of last move?
Earlier we saw some bacterial mats that are indicators of seeps,
Andy?
but only in one small area,
what
actually.
was the
We've
direction
only
of
seen
last
that
move?
once. Hope to
Direction
see
of
some more of
last
that.
move was 230.
Our sonar,
230.
from the multi-beam sonar,
And we're probably finishing that up
definitely
right now.
indicated
When I
there
topped the
are
bridge a couple
some
moments
plumes
ago,
of
we
seeps
had
in
10
this
meters
area.
left.
So, this is Carolyn. One thing to note about that is sometimes, of course, we've taken dives at the seafloor to try to verify the existence of seepage at the base of these plumes that we image in the water column. And because the bubbles have such a large, well, it's essentially velocity contrast to the surrounding water, they show up really well in the water column. But you actually don't need very vigorous seepage of bubbles from the seafloor to generate a nice, very imageable bubble plume. And so often nowadays we get down to where we think there should be a seep, and we have a lot of difficulty, needle in the haystack problem, finding the actual bubble emission, even though there's clearly a nice bubble plume in the water column.
Sure, and Carolyn, what we found off the Washington coast was we had mapped several and returned to a site that a couple days earlier we had seen a lot of gas bubbles, and we returned to the same site a few days later and there was nothing. And as we were roaming around the site, one by one a few bubbles appeared, and within the space of maybe half an hour the entire area erupted with bubbles again. So they are certainly episodic, and so that definitely makes them even more difficult to pinpoint when you see them on the multi-beam traces.
Yeah, and what we've noticed is they're episodic and or ephemeral. Those are different at sort of every time scale. So it might be that you've got something you see on one cruise and 6 months later you don't see it. It might be, as you've indicated, just a few minutes or a few hours differences. We've got imagery of places recharging, so no bubbles, and then a few seconds later pumping out a lot. So there are a lot of mysteries here that have to be solved in terms of the dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Watch leads now. Just wanted to give you an update. So we have 255 minutes of bottom time remaining. And if we just went straight for the waypoints without stopping, it should only take us around 120 minutes. So we have about 2 hours to play with between now and waypoint 5. Yep.
So Nav has just let us know that we have about almost 300 minutes remaining, 255 minutes remaining. And if we were to go straight to our final waypoint, which is the top of this ridge, it would only be about 120 minutes away. So we're going to maybe explore, go back and forth on the slopes of these ridges for a little bit and then spend a little more time at the top. So we're not in a rush at this point, but we do certainly want to spend some time near the top, which is where we think we may encounter a little more of the bubble plume, or we're hoping to.
Your full wide pilot. Your full wide pilot.
So Stephanie, you want to compare the water column from the base of our slope here to what we're seeing now, because it's quite different, although we're seeing some representatives of what we saw earlier.
Yeah, actually, well, and just now I'm noticing that we're seeing actually some suggested shrimp again. So you can see the small white bodies there. That's actually the only opaque part of the body of the suggested. Most of them are transparent, but they have very, very long antennae. So if we get a good look at them, they're really quite distinct. But as Leslie was saying, so earlier in the dive when we first got to the sea floor around, I think it was 510 meters earlier today, we had quite the swarm of these suggested, and so you can see one swimming off the camera right there, and there's another one on the right. It was actually kind of hard to see it was almost hard to see what was on the sea floor because there were so many suggested shrimp swarming just above that that we were a little bit distracted, but and we were also seeing a lot of paralipidid fish, which are also water column dwellers, the long, skinny, very reflective fish. So we're not seeing quite as much of that now. I don't.
Looks like we had a couple.
I'm not going to venture to say that's because of the depth that we're at. I think. I mean, the water column is constantly moving and carrying its inhabitants around. So, of course, there are differences in organisms by depth in the water column. There's also a lot of spatio-temporal changes, so that could be to me that would be more of an explanation for why we're seeing fewer of those organisms now than we were earlier today. Not so much based on depth, because we haven't really changed depth all that much in the grand scheme of the greater water column. But it does make it easier now to pick out these various fish and crabs that we're seeing on the seafloor without all of the numerous organisms in the water column above obscuring the view.
And we had so many snipe eels that one was checking out our rock box and got his jaws stuck in the
Because if I was to land down now,
so he was in our view for quite some time, but the pilots were able to rescue him by opening the box, and he was freed. So we're hoping he's okay.
Yeah, they have very well. They have obviously very long, skinny bodies. We haven't seen one in a couple hours now, I think. Yeah, Leslie was saying we saw many of them right when we first got to the seafloor. Very long, skinny bodies, hence the common name snipe eel, from the family Nemicthiidae.
So
they also have extremely long, skinny jaws that actually, as they get further away from the head of the fish, they curve outward, and they have very, very tiny teeth lining those jaws, and they act like Velcro, actually, and are suited to catching these suggested shrimp that we're seeing. They snag those long antennae, and that is one of the ways that those snipe eels are able to catch their next meal.
No, it's fine.
And we see a lot of the suspended sediments and what we call marine snow in the water column. Get
I'd like to request a ship move.
A view of what's to settle.
15 meters, bearing 230.
Even in these low currents, there is still settling of this material.
Yep, good copy, Bridge.
Yeah, you always have marine snow throughout the water column, but to a greater or lesser extent, of course, depending on how much material has been carried or how much is drifting down from the surface waters. And of course, with moving over the seafloor and such fine sediment right now, we're seeing some of that resuspended as well.
And any little burrowing organism kicks it up as well.
I was wondering whether the shipboard leads, if you've said anything today about the proximity to the Gulf Stream and how the Gulf Stream varies in and out in this area and the impacts on the seafloor of that.
Not today. We
I
haven't
should be
gotten
getting
to that,
closer
but
as
if
I
you'd
come
like
to the top of
to
this ridge.
chat about it, that'd be great. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, I can say a little bit. I don't know if Jason's on the call or not. You might want to say something as well. So, I mean, one of the really interesting things in this particular area off Cape Hatteras is obviously the Gulf Stream is one of the strongest western boundary currents on the planet, and it's carrying warm water northward. And Cape Hatteras is pretty much where it starts peeling off of following parts of the shelf break as it comes north, and then goes out sort of to sea and cuts the corner, if you will, out towards New England. And
Feels
so
like I'm a lot closer
the
than
Gulf
5
Stream
meters.
position varies with time, and it can come further inshore, further out of shore. It also spawns eddies. Sometimes these eddies even end up on the shelf as you go further
Again,
north.
it's on the back right there.
So that's carrying warm water, and there is this southward headed current that exists along sort of the uppermost slope north of here. So it's a very dynamic area, and because the Gulf Stream can be very deep and it can be very strong, it can interact with the bottom, it can suspend a lot of sediment, it can cause a lot of erosion, and then other times you're going to see for other reasons you'll see a lot of sedimentation. And so, you know, you're seeing a bottom here that in places looks pretty lifeless, and in other places you see a lot of little kind of erosional features and all. And so a lot of this just has to do with the dynamism of the currents interacting with the seafloor. And certainly the biology not only affects what you see on the seafloor, but it also is responding to what's happening in the water column and at the seafloor as well. And if Jason's around, he might be able to be a little more articulate than I am saying here.
Yes, Carolyn, when we were diving off of Florida very close to the axis of the Gulf Stream,
How
the
close should I
sediments
try and
like
get?
this didn't even
Like
exist.
within 3 meters
they,
of the bottom?
They
or
were in the
5
water
meters?
column, but not on the seafloor. Currents were much too strong to allow for the fine-grained sediments to settle out, and almost everything we collected, of course, you could see a little bit of the fine grains get winnowed away as you collect the sediment, but very clearly a coarse-grained, shell-rich material off of that coast. So this is a very different type of depositional environment here. And we've seen this on the last several dives, so we're clearly not in the mainstream here, but as you say, certainly at times it would be.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So should I get closer? Copy that. So I should get closer. Okay. So that screen right below the seconds hands on the clock is probably what I want to be looking at as far as seeing what's ahead of me.
So this is Cheryl Morrison, just back from lunch.
Gotcha.
And it looks like we're still on a very steep slope here.
Yeah.
just caught the tail end of Carolyn Ruppel's explanation about why, one of the reasons why there's so much more sediment here than where we were earlier, further south, where we were in the main Gulf Stream.
It's complete. Co-pilot. Copy that.
Am I starting to get stretched out?
We've been seeing a lot of this black belly rosefish, which is the fish that you can see in the middle of your screen now, and we saw a lot of those yesterday as well, at a similar depth but at a more rocky habitat.
Request a ship move.
I haven't seen them on
Range
soft sediment
15 meters.
This type of abundance before.
230 degrees.
Have we already seen that quite a bit today?
Speed .1 knots.
Man, this is
Good
steep.
copy, Bridge.
Go ahead and zoom in video. Go ahead and... Okay.
And we've been seeing these guys
I see that.
laying in these depressions in the sediment. I'm pretty sure that they don't actually make these depressions, but they just use depressions that are there naturally. We saw them yesterday in the rocky habitat. They were just hiding in every crevice and laying next to rocks, trying to get some
Yeah, if you could
protection.
come wide video, please. Thanks. Yeah.
And probably waiting for something to come by that they might be able to eat.
Copy that. Go ahead and come in. Wrong way. Go ahead, video. So try and just get it with the...
Did you call me, Watchley? This is Nav.
Come out, come out, come out.
Sorry, Watchley. Hold on, you're pretty faint. Okay, could you say again? We are. We're approaching waypoint 3. Oh, no, we're approaching waypoint 3 right now. Yep.
All right, thanks, video. You can come out. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Right in the mud. Okay.
So we started this dive at 510 meters and we're now at 354 meters water depth. And we are we're getting close to our waypoint 3. And we're about 26 miles off the coast of Hatteras Island in the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
Gotcha.
So that last move is complete, pilots.
Copy that.
Okay, I'll call in another then. 15 meters at 230. Bridge, Nav. I'd like to request a ship move. Oh, great. So range 15 meters, bearing 230 degrees, speed 0.1 knots.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Bridge.
Okay. So, do need to keep forward. Yeah.
We're seeing more of these little holes or pockmarks in the sediment.
Okay. So now that I'm down, do I just hold it down? Okay. Okay. Come on in video, if you don't mind. I let up. It's really nothing.
It's a nice view of these very fine-grained sediments.
Alright. Go ahead and come out when you're done video.
With the bigger depression right behind where we were looking. Another.
So right now, is it set to positive up?
Couple of black belly rosefish
here. Because as soon as I let go, it immediately comes up.
You can see where the ROV touched down. It's turning over these very dark sediments. And that's indicative of a reducing environment.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So I probably don't need as much force down.
And we've been seeing that sometimes when we zoom into these holes and even the bigger burrows, there's kind of a shaggy look to the edges. I'm not quite sure what that is. But even these small, numerous holes seem to have that.
So you only put down one toe instead of two? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. You can still pivot. Okay, so I'm going to try that again. So just a little bit down. Still forward fighting the current. Could you come in, please, video? And then... something like that. it up a little bit. Yeah, so yeah, so when I let off, I fall back. And that's the bobbing effect? Okay, because I have nothing on right now. And she's starting to float up a little bit.
Thank you, Bridge.
Alright, when you're clear video, you can come out. Okay. Yeah, so when I let off, oh, you know, it's more of me drifting backwards than me picking up. What's my skid mark look like? Gotcha. Rather than, yeah. Okay. Yep. I'll, okay.
We have another crab.
Okay. And fight the current. Copy that.
And more black-belly rosefish.
Right.
And a couple of bigger depressions in the sediments coming up here, or at least one. Lots of black-belly rosefish.
Okay. So what was the direction of the move? 230? Okay. Okay. Copy that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So pretty much where I'm facing now. Okay.
We've been debating in the chat room what is likely to have created all these small holes that we see all over the sediment substrate here. And usually if it was some burrowing animal, we would
Copy
see
that. I'll call one in. Another 5 meters.
We would see areas
okay,
where
20 meters this time.
where the sediment that they've removed from
Bridge,
inside the burrow would be on the surface, and with this dark sediment that we
move.
know lies just underneath
Range
the surface
20
sediment
meters,
here, we would expect
degrees.
to see that piled up
Speed,
outside the burrows, and
knots.
we don't. The burrows are these holes. Some of the things that it could be would be
I was waiting for the
bivalves or
shadows and
shrimps
realized I probably
that
wouldn't see
could
it This,
make
there we go.
little small burrows like this. But again, we don't see the ejecta mound of where the sediment is that they would have removed from the burrow.
Is that a new fish? Or something? I keep hitting up when I want to go forward. Yeah.
That move is underway, pilots.
Copy that. Thank you. What was the last one? Alright.
Beautiful low bait ctenophore just came by. It looks like another salp in the water column. Or siphonophore, sorry. Maybe some more squid ink.
Is that shrimp? Yeah. So most of these we have seen.
And we have maybe a southern hake is that fish. And this is the one that was buried before. So wow, that's great. We get to see the whole body.
That's correct.
Yeah, he's right underneath my skid now. I want to say between 3 and 4 there was a seep, but Kevin was saying this morning that there was a whole bunch on either side of our track line. So yeah, if I remember correctly. So now I should start coming back to the port, right?
There's another, couple of squid here. Wow, they're fast.
I think I'm just moving a little slow. Am I starting to get away from you there? Yeah, you got 39. And what is for the reason for that? Just the sediment that we're on? Is that why it's not getting locked? Throw it off.
just a very little bit left in that move.
I'd say we could get another one in, maybe.
Copy that. I'll call it in. Another 20 meters. Looks like 230 is still a pretty good bearing. Okay.
I think I'm kind of starting to get the feel for how she moves. I think stopping's definitely going to be something I need to practice, especially moving when
I'd
zoomed
like to
in.
request a ship move. Range 20 meters.
Yeah.
Bearing 230
So this was all from me,
degrees.
correct?
Speed
Most likely.
decimal 2 knots. Good copy,
That was quite a large disc coil. Okay. Yeah, I did. Gotcha.
Watch leads nav. Be advised, we just passed waypoint 3. Absolutely. From our present position, waypoint 4 is about 110 meters. Yep.
So we've passed our waypoint 3, and we're on the way to waypoint 4 as we continue to climb up this very sedimented ridge within Hatteras Canyon.
Eel behind the rosefish.
We're at
one of the two.
348 meters.
In this current, would it be better to lateral to port and then kind of like swing around and get a view more like that towards it? Like slide over, or where I was just
We began at just over 500 meters water depth.
Okay. So if I come in.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. However, that means I'm probably going to land right on this rosefish,
I wonder what that fish is.
What fish was that? Watchley?
Must look like a remora from far away, but
interesting tail.
Yeah.
So the thing that swam by?
Yes.
Okay. I'll push it then. So I'm quite high. Yeah. After that.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Yeah.
This
That's
area
where-
isn't quite as steep as what we encountered a little bit lower along this ridge, but it's still very steep. And what we've seen is when we zoom into some of these organisms, when they make any kind of little agitation of the sediment, it begins these micro landslides. And that sediment just creeps its way down.
Copy that.
So these flanks through time just get eroded. Of course, they're being deposited on as well. So it's a balancing act of deposition versus erosion. But I think erosion is winning out throughout these submarine canyons. And that very steep slope makes it very difficult for this sediment to maintain itself for the long term.
The fish watch lead.
Yeah, here's the same fish that.
Go ahead in.
I'll try to get a zoom in on it.
Oh,
I don't know if we have any of our fish folks online. Andrea Quattrini maybe can help us with this one.
Copy that. Go ahead in video if you want more.
you're getting a good zoom on it now, hopefully. But it's swimming, making it tough. Very silvery.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up. Coming up again.
You can almost see through its head. It's an Argentinia.
Okay. Then you should go.
Argentinia. And that's a midwater fish.
What is that thing?
Oh, and then is that a green eye? It just went down the bottom left.
Oh yeah, we saw him several dives ago
Yeah,
now.
a while ago.
Maybe at Lophelia Banks.
Is that a new one as well? What's the guy in that?
They're common. There's a larger one to the right, I think.
A larger fish.
Larger
Just
green
push it.
eye.
Yeah. I think I'm getting pulled by the current.
They're
And
common
we
along
got
the
this
path
one
of the
coming.
Gulf Stream.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So this area
Oh,
doesn't
I'm
seem to
right
be
in the,
as
I got my toe in. That's why.
pitted by the larger burrow-like holes that we've seen, and we
no.
haven't really
I
been
was trying
able
to
to
move
conclude
forward.
if they are all burrows or if some of them are made from gases. We did see a few bubbles arise from one of them.
All right. So the larger one that's looking away from me is in my light pool. Would it be better to come around to the side?
And all these tiny holes that we see across the sediment, we definitely don't know what is causing them.
But I also need to. Yeah.
Might be another one of those southern hake there in the bottom center.
Okay. So, come down like right here. It's much closer.
A lot of suspended material in the water column.
That's for sure.
That marine snow, but also
So
the
like
sediment
here is
that's
about. I got a
brought
toe in,
downslope by the currents,
and then I need to.
suspended.
Okay.
Let's see. good evidence for that right now.
Go ahead and come in,
I
video.
don't think that's sediment
We
we
got a
kicked up.
cloud of something. Huh?
Thinking that's that southern hake, but
I don't know if I'm just so
maybe
stuck
Andrew
in the mud
Quattrini
that
from
she's
Harvey
not
Mudd
moving,
College
but
will correct me if that's not true.
yeah. I'll clean it off when she comes up. Looks like it's going to be quite a bit of dust coming. If you want to come out when you're ready, video, we'll continue on. Yeah, actually the laser's on if you don't mind. Okay. Are we satisfied with this
Yeah.
video?
Coming out.
Thank you.
You're wide.
Okay, pilots.
The temperature here is 8.5 degrees C.
That's quite a bit warmer than where we've been the whole
Yep.
rest of the time we've been out.
We're definitely being influenced by the bottom of the Gulf
Fortunately.
Stream. It's still
Copy,
quite cold
245,
compared to the surface.
20
but
meter at point 2.
We're shallower, of course, so that has something to do with
Copy.
it. What are the coldest depths I haven't paid as much attention. 4?
I was
Did we
thinking.
get something
I was thinking we
4?
might have gotten. Oh, we definitely had 4, but we might have been at 3.
Really, we were that low. I think the lowest I've seen is 4 degrees.
Bridge, Nav.
At one point, we had some pretty strong evidence that we were being affected by one of the very slow bottom hugging currents.
245 degrees.
The
speed decimal
North Atlantic
2 knots.
deep water. That was when we were well away from the coastline in 3,300 meters water depth.
Good copy,
And
Bridge.
That's another one of those hake.
one of our scientists on the chat room noted the properties of the seawater, the temperature and the salinity, and thought that we were seeing the effect of
We
North
saw a
Atlantic
bunch of
deep
them
water.
yesterday.
We are far from that,
There's
both
2 up there, though.
distance and in water depth here, so seeing very different conditions.
You can go ahead and come in, maybe video. See how if I can follow him around. This is
And they know how to make their own smoke screen.
yeah. It's pretty effective. I lost him. Looks like I'm getting out a little.
Do we have someone who called in?
What is that up there?